Hey, it's Sri here. In today's video, I'm going to talk you through the steps that you need to take in order to get your husband to love you again. Now, before we dive in, I just want to let you know that, every single day I speak to women who are going through separation or have been on the receiving end of infidelity, and I understand at a really deep level the sort of pain that you're potentially going through right now. And I really empathize with how difficult it is right now. But I want you to know that I am here to support you and help you in the best way that I possibly can. So what I'd encourage you to do now is just make sure you watch this entire video so that you can access the steps that you need to take in order to be able to get your husband to love you again. And then at the end, what I'll do is I'll give you a couple of action items that you can go through and take in order to be able to move forward and really progress on your journey and maximize your chances of saving your marriage. Just like my clients Angie and Laurie and Sarah and all these beautiful souls who have been able to create extraordinary shifts in a relatively short space of time, and they've done that through the steps that I take my clients through. So I want you to know that transformation really is possible. Make sure you hit that subscribe button below and click on that bell notification as well, so every week you get access to my latest videos where I talk you through the steps that you need to take in order to be able to improve your marriage, what you need to do in order to heal from infidelity, and really maximize your knowledge around male psychology as well, so you can understand your husband or partner at the deepest level and be able to communicate in ways where you both are able to get your needs met. Now, when we talk about the idea of getting your husband to love you again, obviously that's on the assumption that he's fallen out of love. Now, a lot of the times when I hear from clients, they often tell me that their husbands have said, look, I love you, but I'm not in love with you. And, I initially forced myself to question what I'm hearing at certain stages, not to invalidate anything that my clients are feeling, but more to understand how does it go from a place where you love someone to a place where you aren't in love with them? Like, how does that actually work? And I really believe that there is a differentiation between disconnection and actually falling out of love with someone. So I have a number of women who have gone through my training program and have actually ended up reconciling with their husband, or the husband has decided to come back, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months later, and has said that he loves them and always has loved them, but they just fell out of love and for a short space of time. And it really got me thinking about the idea of disconnection. And I'm a real big believer that, if you've had love or experienced love with your partner or husband over the years, it doesn't just suddenly disappear. It doesn't just get to a point where that person has just stopped loving you. What I honestly believe in a lot of instances is that it's more a case of we've disconnected over a period of time. So I know what you're hearing from your husband or your partner might be that he's fallen out of love, but what I'd encourage you to do is reframe this to that he's disconnected from you on some level. So then we have to ask ourselves, how do we actually go about experiencing a level of disconnection with a partner over a period of time? Well, in my experience, there are 3 ways in which people go about experiencing disconnection with a partner or husband. The first is what we call the real life syndrome. Now, what happens is at the very beginning of a relationship, you've got these 2 individuals who are putting their best foot forward, and it almost creates a bit of a fantasy style world. You might be having beautiful date nights and having lovely walks along the beach and potentially traveling and having these once in a lifetime experiences. And it all just seems amazing and beautiful. And, if you've had that, you know what I'm talking about. I know what it's like myself. But the issue is that a lot of the time these relationships are not built on necessarily the strongest of foundations. They're built on these wobbly foundations, which is the fantasy world that so many couples get themselves involved in. So then over time, what happens is they end up getting married, they end up having children, and then you have the daily grind. So people are essentially going about their daily lives, and there's work, there's changing nappies, there's making dinners, there's picking and dropping off the kids, there is making money, and all of these things and components that make up everyday life. Now, we can look at this and think, well, of course, everyone knows that, when you have kids, you've got to do all these activities, or when you get together and you start living with someone, that there's cooking and there's money and all that sort of stuff, that these are all factors that play a part in a relationship or a marriage. But you see, when you're actually at the beginning of a relationship, and you're not necessarily allowing that relationship to be built on really solid foundations, then what happens is those everyday things start to really trigger the other person and vice versa, because we react differently under different stresses. Now let's say finances have been a problem over the years. See, at the beginning you may not have necessarily seen it. There may have been some red flags, but you may not have actually seen all of it at a deeper level until you're experiencing everyday life under the microscope in the marriage. And once you start to see that, you may get triggered or he may get triggered, whichever way it's worked. That may be a massive source of stress. Or it may be just the amount of time that he's spending at work, and then that's sort of triggering some feelings of abandonment and inadequacy and so on inside of you. I'm not saying that it's wrong to feel that. I'm just saying that these things can come up, and it's all fundamentally down to, we'll call the real life syndrome. These real life matters, the kids, the work, the finances, all of that stuff can play a really big part in disconnection occurring over time, because relationships often aren't built on the right foundations to manage those things. You know, they were built on wobbly foundations early on, and that's then led to further problems down the line. Now, in no way am I blaming anyone or anything like that. I'm just explaining to you my observations over the last 10 years working with women and helping them in their marriages. Now, yes, there are exceptions to the rule, but as a general pattern, I have seen this a lot. Now, the second reason why disconnection occurs is what I call the shadow effect. Now, what happens is we all have a deeper part of ourselves. We have our primary parts of ourselves, which is the part that we like to show out into everyday life or to our friends and to the public and so on. And then we have what I call our shadow parts of ourselves. And that is the part that is, you know, the darker aspects of ourselves, the parts of ourselves which, you know, have those negative thoughts and feelings of being inadequate or not good enough, or, you know, the fear that comes up inside of us from time to time that we don't necessarily want other people to see. But the thing is that when we're in a relationship, all of those shadow parts of ourselves, our fears, our insecurities, all of that stuff literally get magnified. All of the behaviors of the other person, they'll often bring up those fears and those insecurities that we have on the inside. And that goes both ways as well. It triggers aspects of ourselves that we haven't necessarily had exposed in the past. And that's why relationships can be so challenging. It's not just, you know, two people getting together and they just like to coexist and it's all this lovey-dovey stuff all the time. Not at all. A relationship is a gift, because what it does is it brings out aspects of ourselves that we need to work on. Problem is though, a lot of people don't want to work on those things. You know, or one person might want to work on it and the other person has no interest in it, and then that can cause problems. So that's another reason why disconnection can occur, because over time, if a person is getting more and more frustrated, rather than looking at themselves, they're looking at the other person and then feeling like they did this to them. And then slowly but surely there's a disconnect, and before you know it, husband might say, I'm not in love with you anymore. I love you, but I'm not in love with you. Whereas what's actually happened is there's just been disconnection over the years. And the third reason why disconnection can occur is often due to the lack of understanding of each other's communication styles, and in particular, really understanding the masculine versus the feminine approach to communication. You know, men and women really operate very, very differently. And if you don't understand those differences, then it can really create a whole host of problems. But if we can understand that the masculine energy communicates in a certain way and the feminine communicates in another way, then it becomes a complete game changer, because you really understand each other's needs and are able to communicate in ways that are going to serve those needs in the most beautiful way, but also communicate in ways where you're not getting defensive and grumpy at each other. So by understanding how the disconnection occurs, we then have to ask ourselves, well, what do we actually do about it? How do we get the husband to love you again? Well, I'm going to give you 3 quick steps here that you can begin to take. And the first step is that you've got to address the core wound. Now, when people are going through challenges in a relationship, the last thing they often want to hear is that they have to work on themselves. For those of you who know my work well, you'll understand that that is always going to be the first point of call for me. Why? Because I've seen it so many times where people don't work on themselves, they only focus on the marriage. The husband comes back, and then it only creates more problems because they're not addressing the internal stuff, and they're not addressing the deeper aspects of male psychology and understanding their partner at a deeper level and understanding how his behaviors are triggering themselves and all of that stuff. You've got to really go deep into what's going on the inside, and in particular, what are your core wounds? When he's done what he's done, whether that be infidelity, whether that be saying that he wants a separation or whatever, what's it doing inside of you? What wounds is it triggering inside of you? Is it bringing up huge fears on the inside that you're not going to be able to survive? Have you basically been a stay-at-home mum for a long period of time, and now it's like, oh my God, I have to actually do something now. I've got to get a job. How the hell am I going to survive financially, and so on? What are the deeper wounds on the inside? And to be clear, once again, this is not a criticism. It's just about saying, look, this is an opportunity for you to really face up to your deeper wounds, because what happens is once you start to heal that, it then allows you to approach everything in a completely different way. And what I find is that when people start to heal those deeper wounds, it has this direct impact on the other person. They start to go, I don't know what's going on here, but something just seems different. And they suddenly start to be more open to the idea of working on the marriage and so on, because they're seeing shifts. Because the reality is that he also has a viewpoint on why he's left. You know, he feels justified in what he's done. Whether it's right or wrong is a different story altogether. But he has his own viewpoints, and we have to acknowledge those and understand those and empathize with those on some level. But if you can start to do the healing on yourself, not only is it going to give you the greatest chance of being able to save your marriage and get him to really love you again, but what it's going to do, more importantly, is it's going to really create a level of healing on the inside. It's going to make you feel beautiful on the inside. It's going to make you feel more at peace, more self-love, more self-worth. And that is the rock solid foundations that I'm talking about. If you can have that as your foundation, it's going to impact every area of your life in the most positive way. And I can tell you right now, even in my life, you know, creating these shifts at the deepest level has totally transformed so many areas of my life, and I want the same for you as well, and that's why I believe in this so much. The second step that you need to take is to reframe this experience. Now, the chances are that you're looking at this experience and thinking it is the most painful, most horrible experience that you could possibly imagine, and to be honest, I wouldn't challenge you on that at all. It absolutely is extreme in terms of its pain, because it really rocks your foundations. But I really encourage you to maybe look at this from a slightly different angle. Now, for those of you who are spiritual, whatever your beliefs are, what I'd actually encourage you to do is maybe look at it from a slightly different angle and say, if God or the universe, whatever, was actually serving me in this experience, how is this actually helping me in my journey? You know, is this something that's actually helping me to grow as a person? Is this maybe an opportunity to do a stock take on my marriage and sort of really look back on the last few years, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, whatever it is, and go, how has this marriage been over this time? Has it been something that's actually been the sort of marriage of my dreams, or has it actually been going really badly for a long time? And this moment has come about to force me to really look at it and understand, okay, is this the right marriage for me? Or is this also bringing up an opportunity to heal myself? Just like I talked about in step number 1, you really want to recognize that there is a gift in all of this. I know, once again, a lot of people get a little bit frustrated when I say this, that it's a gift, but I've never seen a situation where down the line people don't look back and go, wow, I actually learned a lot, or I grew a lot, or it was actually the making of me as a person. It always is, as long as you're actually looking at it from the right perspective. If you're always staying in that kind of angry and bitter place, then naturally that is going to lead you to experience more and more of those feelings down the line. But if you can just take a moment and say, actually, there's a real opportunity here for my own growth, and that this is actually a gift, that maybe God or the universe is actually serving me here rather than punishing me, then suddenly it becomes a complete game changer. And you'll really find that in the long run, that you'll be in a beautiful, beautiful place. And the third step is to make sure you do the work But in particular, make sure you're humble enough to get the help that you need. Now, I say that because we are in this age of just free information everywhere. We've got blogs, YouTube videos, Facebook posts, all sorts of things. And I think what I'm noticing is that there's a lot of people who think they can just kind of fumble their way on their own. But in any area of life, there are always experts. There are people who have more knowledge than us. And I know in my own life, whenever it came to career or finances or, building a business, whatever, I always made sure that I invested in people, that I invested in getting the help that I needed, because I know and I recognize that I don't know it all. And I see a lot where people think they know it all. They're going out there and just kind of thinking that they can do whatever it is that they want to do and just follow a few blogs and so on, but they ends up just leading them all down the wrong path, because you've got to go deep. You've got to create a level of depth in your transformation. It's not just surface level stuff. You've got to really create the healing at the deepest level. And I know that it can often be a really difficult journey. It's a complicated journey. It's not linear by any stretch of the imagination. You can sometimes go up and down for a little period of time, and then eventually you hit this lovely point where you find real genuine peace. But it does require a lot of work. It does require some deeper healing on the inside. And the problem is that a lot of people often think that they can just do it on their own. And I encourage you to maintain humility here. And what I mean by that, I'm not saying you're arrogant or anything like that, but we have to remember that we don't know it all in life. And there are people out there who actually know what they're doing or know more in a certain area. They may know less in other areas, but they may know more in other areas. And so it's really important to remember that, if you are in a place where you're struggling and you're battling and you are needing help, don't be afraid to ask for help, and be grounded and centered enough to know that you don't know it all and that you absolutely can get the help that you need, and there are people out there who are ready to serve you. Now, I want you to know that, this is exactly the reason why I've created my Authentic Relationship System training program, because I know what it's like to struggle to make the shifts that you want to in your relationships or, in your career or whatever it is. I know what it's like, and that's why I've always believed in, getting help that you need. But in particular, when it comes to relationships and marriages, I've literally spent over a decade really studying and learning about what makes marriages tick, what helps them to go to the next level, why do people engage in infidelity, why do people engage in separation. It's my life's work, and I really want to be there to serve you, especially if you're going through a really tough time. And so, I've created this program that talks you through exactly the steps that you need to take in order to not only heal you, but also to heal your marriage in the best possible way. And, I've got so many beautiful women who are experiencing shifts on a daily basis because of the work that they're putting in and the level of humility that they show on a regular basis, recognizing that they don't know it all and that they're open to learning. And I encourage you to keep that mindset, because it really will allow you to move forward and to grow in the best possible way. So if you connect with my work, if you connect with me and maybe like my Kiwi accent and you really want to, potentially look into getting some help from me, then what I'd encourage you to do is in the description section below, there's a link that says book a call with me. Just click on that link, choose a time that works for you, and then what I'll do is I'll call you at the scheduled time just so I can learn a little bit more about your situation, where you are now, where you want to get to, and how we can bridge that gap in the shortest possible time. I can't wait to be of service to you. I thank you for placing your faith in me, and I can't wait to speak to you at some point soon. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you've liked it, make sure you hit the like button below. If you want to get more videos like this, hit that subscribe button. And do let me know what your biggest takeaway is from this video as well. I always love hearing the comments and the questions, so make sure you write them below and I'll respond to every single one of them. And if you want to learn how to deal with the fear of losing your husband, just click this video above. And if you want to learn how to deal with mixed messages from your husband, click this video above. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you in the next video.